Welcome to the Melanated.World.Network. Produced by DM3 Entertainment. Letting you know that melanin is sexy. And learn to love melanin masculinity. And letting the ladies know that virtuous femininity is your superpower. And encouraging men to be on their purpose. And the ultimate goal is a melanated nuclear family by any means necessary. So sit back and enjoy yourself, and you might learn something. What's up, YouTube? I'm back with another one. And as y'all know, on my channel, I'm talking about all type of stuff. You know, today what I'm talking about is who are we? For the last 40 years, you know, you've been hearing terms like African American, black, you know, having the concept of all black people come from Africa who live in America. And even today, we have this new concept called FBA, Foundational Black Americans. Now, even with the Foundational Black Americans, I say that we're going in the right direction, but we just haven't got there yet. For those, and I say there yet, meaning the masses of people who consider themselves black or African American, because the truth of the matter is, we are the original inhabitants. Our ancestors are the original inhabitants of America, especially when it comes to the islands, especially when it comes to the East Coast and the southern parts of America. We were the original people. And as you can see in this picture here, it was a picture shown back in 1798 in Britten Museum, showing the difference between the African and the native indigenous inhabitants of America. As you see, they both look very similar. So this is where you see a lot of the confusion that we have today, where you hear people all the time talking about, we from Africa, our ancestors are African, the motherland, Africa. Well, in actuality, the planet Earth has had melanated people all over the world. And we are not always ancestors straight from Africa. There are melanated people throughout the world, as I said. But especially in America, on the East Coast of America and the southern regions of America, there were lots of melanated, dark-skinned, brown-skinned, copper-colored Americans here already. So I wanted to show that, and I want to give you some videos and talks real quick about that. And before we get into it, I'm going to give you this little clip before I give you another clip having to do with what you tell a person who always thinks they're African when they're in actuality a true American. Here we go.
You talk more shit than a little bit. Back to Mother Africa. That's bullshit. Without question, we are all black Americans. You do not know a goddamn thing about Africa. I am from Detroit, Motown. So you can want Tootsie your monkey ass back to Africa if you want to.
Yes, I had to show you that video real quick. But before you Watusi your black ass back to Africa, what you need to do is find out through your family and do the research of where you come from. Because as you see in this video right here, it has captions saying to the visitors in the southern in the South, the physical characteristics of many Negro slaves bore witness to their Indian origin, right? And then another one has to do, it says most blacks in America are indigenous or descendants from the First Nations peoples, meaning that we were here. Give you an idea, just quick, just think about it. You all know about the root story, but what if it went like this? When the colonizers came here, they warred with the tribes that were already here, and when the tribes lost, they kidnapped and took the children and took the women and relocated them to places where they would think they were in a new land, but they were actually still here in America. So those are like some of the things that people need to start to think about instead of being taught all of these things that we learned growing up in the last 40 years. I woke up a long time ago because I started, I stumbled across a young man that you all probably have heard of before, Dane Calloway. And if you look at some of Dane's old videos, he used to say African American until he started doing his research and finding out that we are really the indigenous Americans. So what I want to do is show you this quick video of how Dane gave some evidence and proof, or even made you think and wake up, which I did. I woke up and I started realizing, and I started asking family members about the history of our family, and I come to find out that my family are indigenous or Indian people out of Boston, Massachusetts. So without further ado, I'm going to let y'all check out Dane's video, and then I'll be right back with you. Let's go. Sit down, get your popcorn. Let's go.
While speaking at a formal gathering somewhere off the grid at a discreet location, just after his return from crossing the waters, Malcolm X revealed some very vital, unconventional details on what Negroes, or rather African Americans, were truly considered to be as a nationality of race prior to being called or labeled a Negro.
Aborigine, which means what? Black folks. You never find a white aborigine. Aborigines are called natives, or they're always dark-skinned people. You and I are aborigines, but you don't like to be called an aborigine.
Malcolm X stated that the rock landed on us after he returned across the waters because he learned new things. He learned that the rock had truly landed on us and that we were from these lands. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. also stated in his I Have a Dream speech that we are held in exile in our own homeland.
The Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land.
Now we have a lot of scholars out there, and individuals are missing the point. How can you be held in exile in your own homeland without it being your own homeland? The tens of millions of black Americans, or rather Indians, who disappeared in 1492 did not all die in the Holocaust inflicted within America. Hundreds of thousands were shipped to Europe and Africa as Indian slaves. The whole slave trade story was given to all of us in reverse. A mass colony of Africans were not shipped from Africa to America. The truth is that black Indians were shipped from America to Europe. They were then shipped from Spain to Africa as commodity for African resources. These black Indians, now mistaken as African Americans, were shipped back to America and classified as African slaves. This part of our history is what the school systems fail to mention in history programs. The American Society was an organization formed in 1816 with the purpose of transporting free African Americans, or rather Indian slaves, classified as Negroes back then, from the United States to settle on the west coast of Africa. During the decades, the society operated and transported more than 12,000 people to Africa, and the African nation of Liberia was founded. The term African American to refer to all black people was endorsed only since 1988, but was against the desires of the majority of black people. In fact, the term was endorsed by only 5 people, including Reverend Jesse Jackson, and Ramona Edlin leading the charge as a result of a gathering called the African American Summit without the input of the majority of black people. Author Avis J. Smith went to the district court in Washington, D.C. to stand against this term, as well as against the notion that a small group of powerful individuals should be able to compel the masses into adopting it. The systematic destruction of the Native Americans, or rather Native Indigenous Aborigine people, and their way of life was not only one of recorded history's greatest tragedies, but as with the slave trade, deeply spiritually wounding to all involved. The utter decimation of their culture is one of the most shameful aspects of history, the extent of the damage still being downplayed and denied entry into textbooks and history lessons to this day. I'm just here to make you think.
Now, hopefully, the video that I just shared with you from Dane Calloway has got you now thinking. And as you see in this image before you, in the 14th to the 17th century, an Indian image was just what you see in the little doll. But then from the 18th century to the 21st century, you now believe an Indian to look like you see in Hollywood. And these are the images, and these are the type of brainwashing that they have been doing for centuries now about our people. And as y'all notice on the video, it said that only 5 people came up with this term of African American, connecting the copper-colored people to the continent of Africa. And generation after generation now has forgotten that we are the original indigenous people of America. And as you read or pause and look at the video at top, you can slowly read and see what it says. Now we move on here, and a book that was written by Booker T. Washington, The Story of the Negro, it shows and says as follows. In his book on page 131, Booker T. Washington says, I venture to say that the amount of Indian blood in the American Negro is very much larger than anyone who has not investigated the subject would be inclined to believe. So those are just tidbits letting you understand that we are the indigenous people of the Americas. And also here's a picture of the Cubans in 1860, where it shows that even they were of a copper-colored color. And just to let you know, as the pictures go on, that we were the Indians and we also were the cowboys. And as you see, this great actor that you all may have probably seen in many old movies, he was an Indian. He played Indian. He also played a cowboy. So remember, people, when they say Americans, it meant the copper-colored indigenous people of the Americas. But today, when you say American, you think of the European. But it was not always the case. And we need to all get back to that and believe and know who we are and where our land is, which the land we are standing on today. And you must remember that you're not an African American, you're not black, you are unapologetically American, the original Americans, not the Europeans or the so-called white man, but you, black man, are the indigenous Indian, the American Indian. So I just had to tell you guys that and pass it on. And please share this video and let others know so that we can finally wake up and fix ourselves. We have to know ourselves first to fix ourselves. So till next time, peace. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, do your brother a favor, hit that subscribe. And then also give me a thumbs up, hit that like button, and share it with a friend. Sharing is caring. Until next time, I'll see you